to South Asia Today, a show that provides you glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Pratiksha Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. World leaders forge stronger ties at G20 summit in New Delhi. Indian artists making idols of Hindu gods for upcoming festive season in Nepal. And cleanliness drive at the picturesque Dal Lake turns into a good employment opportunity for the locals. Let's begin the show. The G20 summit in India's capital New Delhi successfully concluded last week. Leaders of powerful economies around the world gathered to discuss pressing global issues, chart a path forward for the international community, and witness several path-breaking initiatives from food security to the biofuel alliance to decisions like permanent memberships for the African Union and climate action as its main agenda. The agreements reached during the summit undoubtedly have a significant impact on the future of our planet. Let's dive into the highlights of this significant event. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with leaders of powerful economies around the world, gathered at Bharat Mandapam in India's capital New Delhi to attend the mega G20 summit, which recently concluded on a grand note. Delegates from the 20 member countries, along with the European Union, were welcomed by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi with a traditional lamp lighting ceremony. In a major diplomatic victory for India, the summit adopted the leaders' declaration by consensus.
मेरा प्रस्ताव है कि इस लीडर्स डिक्लेरेशन को भी एडॉप्ट किया जाए। मैं इस डिक्लेरेशन को एडॉप्ट करने की घोषणा करता हूं।
The agreement was reached on the Delhi Declaration despite hard stance and differing views on the Russia-Ukraine crisis by the member nations, which many believed could have derailed the meeting. On the sidelines of the G20 summit, global leaders announced a multinational rail and ports deal linking the Middle East and South Asia.
आज हम सब ने एक महत्वपूर्ण और ऐतिहासिक समझौता संपन्न होते हुए देखा है। आने वाले समय में यह भारत, पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप के बीच इकोनॉमिक इंटीग्रेशन का प्रभावी माध्यम होगा। यह पूरे विश्व में कनेक्टिविटी और विकास को सस्टेनेबल दिशा प्रदान करेगा। पीजीआईआई के माध्यम से हम ग्लोबल साउथ के देशों में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर गैप को कम करने में महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दे सकते हैं। सभी क्षेत्रों के साथ कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ाना भारत की मुख्य प्राथमिकता है। हमारा मानना है कि कनेक्टिविटी विभिन्न देशों के बीच आपसी व्यापार ही नहीं, आपसी विश्वास भी बढ़ाने का स्रोत है।
The agreement comes at a crucial time as US President Joe Biden works to oppose China's Belt and Road Initiative on global infrastructure by positioning the United States as an alternative partner and investor for poor nations at the G20 summit.
As we work to address infrastructure gaps across low and middle income countries, we need to maximize the impact of our investments. That's why a few months ago I announced that the United States will work with our partners to invest in economic corridors. In practice, it means we're focusing on regional infrastructure projects that deliver results across multiple countries and in multiple sectors.
The two-day-long mega event, which was based on the theme of Vasudev Kutumbakam or the world is one family, witnessed several path-breaking initiatives and decisions, including the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member, the first expansion of the bloc since its inception. Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a proposal to have the African Union join the G20 permanently, and it was consensually approved. African Union President Azali Assoumani expressed great satisfaction that the African Union was formally admitted to the bloc to make the grouping more representative.
À ma grande satisfaction, l'admission du G20 a été actée dès l'ouverture du sommet. Son Excellence Monsieur Modi, Premier ministre de l'Inde, et les membres du G20 ont entériné l'adhésion de l'Union africaine au sein de cette grande instance décisionnelle économique.
The G20 summit statement has been praised by the leaders of several nations, including Russia, Germany, and the European Union, who noted that India's leadership was essential to its adoption. The summit became fruitful when India announced the launch of a global biofuel alliance with the United States and Brazil as its founding members to expedite the global uptake of biofuels. Digital transformation and technology cooperation were key themes. G20 nations agreed to collaborate on data governance, cybersecurity, and digital infrastructure development. Leaders discussed strategies to boost global economic growth, enhance financial stability, and promote inclusive recovery. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on the sidelines of the G20 summit, also held more than a dozen bilateral engagements with world leaders. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi held talks to give a fresh impetus to bilateral ties between India and the United Kingdom.
Well, Prime Minister Modi and I had a very warm and productive discussion on a range of different things. With regard to the trade deal, there's a desire on both of our parts to see a successful trade deal concluded. The opportunities are there for both countries, but there is a lot of hard work that's still to go, and we need to work through that, as we will do.
Meanwhile, a lavish gala dinner was hosted by the Indian President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the summit. The menu served to reflect the summit motto, One Earth, One Family, One Future. After a fructiferous weekend, the G20 summit under India's presidency concluded on September 10th. The host, India, was highly regarded by world leaders for its successful campaign throughout the presidency. PM Modi's Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is not only for India, it is his great vision for the world too. Moving on, with the onset of the festive season in Nepal, a team that travelled from India's Kolkata to Lalitpur, Nepal, a month ago is continuously working to create idols of Hindu gods and goddesses. The team is speeding up work to make and sell about 160 idols of god and goddesses on a daily basis. Have a look.
A team that arrived in Nepal's Lalitpur a month ago from India's Kolkata are working continuously to make idols of Hindu gods and goddesses with the onset of the festival season in Nepal. The team arrived in Lalitpur a month ago along with a lorry laden filled with soil from the Ganges and is making idols of deities which are in high demand in the Himalayan nation.
हम लोग को कोलकाता से आया जो गंगा जी का मिट्टी का मूर्ति बनाया और हम लोग को यहाँ जो मूर्ति चाहिए आप लोग को इधर चलाइए.
The team of Deepak Haldar, who is currently renting a plot of land for a few months, is busy creating the idols of Vishwakarma god as the day to worship the metallurgies is just 1 week away. The team is speeding up work to make and sell about 160 idols of gods and goddesses. As per Hindu mythologies, Vishwakarma, the designer of all flying chariots of the gods and goddesses, also designed and made weapons for them. There is a tradition of celebrating Vishwakarma Puja on the 9th day of the Daishin festival Navami in Nepal. It is a worship and tribute to all those who invented the technology. It is a salutation to all who worked in the field of physics for the betterment of people. Lord Vishwakarma has 4 hands, wears a crown, wears lots of jewelry and holds a water pot, a book, a noose and craftsman tools in his hands. People install pictures of Lord Vishwakarma at the corners of crossroads and put statues and idols of him on corners of the streets. Puja is also associated with the custom of flying kites. This occasion, in a way, also marks the start of the festive season that lasts till Deepavali.
नेपाल और इंडिया तो भाई भाई है, तो इधर भी एक हिंदू लोग रहते हैं और इंडिया में तो हिंदू लोग रहते हैं, इसलिए सबसे ये कारण है, इसलिए हम लोग इधर आया, क्योंकि इधर में मिट्टी के पूजा नहीं कर जाता, इधर में सब पत्थर को पूजा कर जाता है, तो हम लोग एक सोच लेकर आया क्यों मैं इंडिया में तो जो मिट्टी का बनाता है तो मैं नेपाल में क्यों नहीं होगा, इधर भी तो हिंदू लोग रहते हैं.
The Ganesh Chaturthi, the birthday of the Hindu god Lord Ganesh, is just few days away. Devotees have placed their order for idols of elephant-headed Hindu god in advance, as it is only made on the basis of orders. The team of Haldar has sleeved up to supply the Nepali market with the Bengali-style idols this festive season.
And now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in our segment called Asia Watch. An Iraqi police officer is well on his way to completing construction of an apartment complex as part of a charitable project that will house Iraqi families in need. Al-Alaf Dinar, Arabic for 1,000 dinars, is a donation-based housing project launched by Saif Abbas Kataf that aims to build a full complex of 100 apartments, a healthcare center, a kindergarten and a school. Since 2019, Kataf's charity has provided 75 housing units to families in need across Iraq. The apartments, which lie in Iraq's Babel, south of the capital Baghdad, were funded entirely through donations and which will give its future tenants full ownership and a title deed. Forming a sea of blue and white Israeli flags, protesters in Jerusalem chanted democracy in a show of support for the Supreme Court, which on Tuesday will convene its entire 15-judge bench for the first time in Israeli history. The historic hiring will be on a bid by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition to curb the court's powers, and the judges will hear appeals against a judicial amendment that was passed by Netanyahu's National Religious Coalition in July and which sparked uproar for what critics say is an attempt to weaken the court. The government's judicial overhaul campaign has caused Israeli worst domestic political crisis in years, with hundreds of thousands of people taking part in weekly demonstrations nationwide since January when it was launched. Efforts to reach agreements between Netanyahu and opponents have so far been fruitless, adding to fears the crisis will only deepen. The UN rights chief said that human rights in Afghanistan were in a state of collapse, accusing the Taliban of a shocking level of oppression of women and girls. The Taliban returned to power in August 2021 and have placed restrictions on the rights and freedoms of women and girls through bans on education and work. The Taliban say they respect women's rights in line with their interpretation of Islamic law and local custom. Volker Turk was speaking in front of the Human Rights Council in Geneva. His speech coincides with the publication of a report by his office covering the period March 2022 to August 2023, which notes a systematic regression of the rule of law and human rights in Afghanistan, particularly with regard to the rights of women and girls. It also said it had frequently documented instances of women being harassed or beaten at checkpoints by Taliban authorities for not wearing the hijab correctly or sent home from the market for lacking a male marham or guardian. The illegally occupied territory of Gilgit-Baltistan is rattled with protests against the Pakistan-backed local government in the region. The residents of Ishkoman Valley in the northern district of Giza took to the streets against the local administration for the non-compliance to their demands. The residents, perturbed with inflation, shortage of food and lack of infrastructure development in the region, blamed the local government for corruption and the negligence towards growth of Ishkoman Valley. We have a report.
The illegally occupied territory of Gilgit-Baltistan is rattled with protests against the local authorities. For more than 70 years of Pakistan's misrule in the territory, the residents have endured innumerable hardships and deprivation. Ishkoman Valley, an enduring marvel of nature, has been left underdeveloped for decades. With no electricity, no medical healthcare facilities and food, the residents are clamoring for the very basic needs for their survival. The apathetic attitude of the local administration in Gilgit-Baltistan has caused the residents to take to the streets against the inefficient government.
हम अगर अपनी हक की बात करते हैं तो अगर कोई कहता है कि मैं अपने जबर के बलबूते पे, अपनी ताकत के बलबूते पे इसको डराऊंगा, ये 1947 नहीं, ये 2023 है। आज हम अगर यहाँ गरीब की बात करते हैं, यहाँ मजलूम की बात करते हैं, यहाँ तरक्याती कामों में करप्शन की बात करते हैं, तो इसके ऊपर अगर कोई हमला करा के ये साबित करना चाहता है और ये समझता है कि हमारे हमले से इनके सारे हौसले नीचे आएंगे, तो ये उनकी भूल है कि हम आज के बाद मजीद मजबूत होंगे और मजीद इस मजलूम कौम की नुमाइंदगी करेंगे।
The residents in Ishkoman have often been used as pawns to bring corrupt administration to power year after year. Although the Ishkoman Valley in the northern Giza district of Gilgit-Baltistan is an important location, the local administration has not given it a status of even a subdivision. Residents complain the corrupt administration has taken advantage of their decency and used them to canvass for their leaders who lick the boots of dictators from Islamabad.
यहाँ पर तमाम सेक्रेटरीज जिनको हमने एप्लीकेशंस दे दे के थक गए, अब ये हमारा शराफत का जो है गलत फ़ायदा नहीं उठाया जाए। हम यहीं पे रहेंगे, हम धरने पे आएंगे, हम अपने लोगों को यहाँ पे खड़े करेंगे। हमें पता है कि हमने जब 18,000 लोगों को चिनार के नीचे जमा किया था, अब की बार 28,000 से ज़्यादा तादाद यहाँ पे आएगी।
The residents, saturated with the stooge administration's coercive actions and atrocities on the general public, have now resolved to protest until their demands are met. The residents demand that the Ishkoman Valley should get the status of a subdivision and development works like metal road and bridges should be built on priority. However, there are several other basic demands of the locals that have gone unnoticed and unfulfilled by the local administration of Gilgit-Baltistan.
हम टाइम देंगे, उस टाइम के दौरान अगर हिम्मत अगर ये हो तो बेहतर है। फिर हुकूमत वाले ये न कहे कि इश्कोमन में फंसे हुए लोग कहां जाएंगे, हम पीछे जाएंगे, उस तरफ इनको समझ आनी चाहिए। अगर ये कहते हैं कि हर कोने के लोगों को उसको जो है ना घेर कर हम उनको कैदी बनाएंगे, तो इनका बाप भी नहीं बना सकता है। ये याद रखें ये लोग।
The protests are erupting all across the illegally occupied territory of Gilgit-Baltistan. There are innumerable problems that the residents are facing: the heightened inflation, load shedding, unavailability of food, and on top, the sectarian violence against the Shia majority in Gilgit-Baltistan have further disgruntled the residents.
Moving on, the Dal Lake at the heart of Srinagar has remained an epitome of Kashmiri civilization for times immemorial. To keep the waters of this urban Himalayan lake pure and pollution-free, the Jammu and Kashmir Lakes Conservation and Management Authority has started a cleanliness drive that would not only add to the beauty of Kashmir but also serves as an employment opportunity for a number of locals residing near Dal Lake. We have a report.
Dal Lake, the jewel in the crown of Kashmir. With a long shoreline of around 15 kilometers, Dal Lake is the second largest lake in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The urban lake, lined up with Kashmir's quintessential houseboats, shikaras, is a scenic marvel that tourists from the country and abroad do not afford to miss out. To maintain this marvelous beauty of Kashmir Valley, around 450 people have been employed, who religiously keep the lake free of weeds and urban pollution.
यूजुअली जो पेरिफेरी है डल की शोर लाइन उसको हम बोलते हैं, उसको हमने मैन्युअली लेबर्स वहाँ पे लगाए हैं. ऑलमोस्ट डेली बेसिस पे एवरेज में 450 लेबर्स जो शोर लाइन क्लीन करते हैं. उसकी वजह से लेक क्लीन रहता है, तो उससे एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी जनरेट होता है. जो यहाँ के लोकल्स है डल के सराउंडिंग में रहते हैं, तो उनको रोज़गार भी मिलता है. तो वो सारा सिलसिला चलता रहता है. ईयरली हम करते हैं ये कंटिन्यूसली.
The Jammu and Kashmir Lakes Conservation and Management Authority has been dutifully maintaining the biodiversity of the natural lake for several years. They have employed a number of people residing near Dal Lake to keep the water body clean and pure. Although the lake has remained as pious as it was in its yesteryears, with the utmost devotion showed by the workers, the harsh winters and mercurial temperatures in summer have taken a toll on few lives on the line of duty.
यहाँ पे जो टेम्परेचर होता है वो बहुत ज़्यादा होता है, गर्मी में काम करना पड़ता है. लेबर जो होते हैं वो पूरा दिन यहाँ पे खड़े रह के डल की सफाई करते हैं. इस बीच बहुत सारे लेबर्स ऐसे थे जिनका ब्लड प्रेशर हाई हुआ, उसकी वजह से कुछ एक लेबर्स की डेथ भी हुई. इस साल गवर्नमेंट ने वो मद्देनजर रखते हुए कुछ लेबर्स का बल्कि सभी लेबर जो भी अभी इसमें इन्वॉल्व है उन सबों का इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी भी इसमें ऐड की है, और साथ में इसका पीएफ भी ऐड किया हुआ है. उसके लिए हम गवर्नमेंट का और डिपार्टमेंट का शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं.
अगर हम ये काम नहीं करेंगे ना तो डल ये ख़राब हो जाएगा, टूरिज़्म भी नहीं आएगा. अगर कुछ चलता है वो इसी डल की वजह से चलता है. वो अगर कोई बाहर से आता है वो पहले डल ही देखने आता है, बिकॉज इट इज़ अ क्राउन ऑफ दिस कश्मीर. डल लेक इज़ अ क्राउन ऑफ द कश्मीर.
The government authority taking cognizance of the matter has now enrolled all the employees under the purview of insurance, provident fund and other facilities to benefit the local workers. The new beneficial policies brought in by the government is further attracting many youngsters residing near Dal Lake to take up the task of cleaning the lake.
इनके लिए हमने एक तो इंश्योरेंस रखा है, जो भी इसमें ये डिवीडिंग लेबर्स है उनको इंश्योरेंस प्रोविडेंट फंड रखा है. यूजुअली होता क्या था, प्रीवियसली ऐसे नहीं होता था. इस साल से हमने ये अडॉप्ट किया है। एक तो इनका इंश्योरेंस, प्रोविडेंट फंड, किसी की डेथ होती थी ड्यूरिंग डिविडिंग तो वो बेनिफिट उसको नहीं मिलते थे। अब इन केस अगर किसी की डेथ होती है उसको इंश्योरेंस मिलेगा एज वेल एज प्रोविडेंट फंड भी है उसका।
The Himalayan urban lake located in the heart of Srinagar has maintained its charm for generations. Serving as one of the main tourist attractions of the valley, Dal Lake and its spellbinding character is being religiously looked after by an army of workers who relentlessly perform their duties day after day. They give out an assurance that the jewel in the crown of Kashmir is in the safe hands.
It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Pratiksha Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.